He was invisible to everyone until he found a secret that could destroy the most powerful man in the city. If you love stories about real people facing impossible choices, hit subscribe for your daily dose of powerful stories on Nicky Ideas. You know, friends, some people are just part of the background. Arthur Pembleton was one of those people. For 30 years, he'd been the head janitor at Oakwood Prep. He moved through the halls like a ghost, his keys jingling a soft tune that everyone heard, but no one really listened to. His world was the squeak of his mop bucket's wheels, the smell of bleach, and the deep, empty silence after the last student had slammed their locker shut and gone home. His life outside those walls wasn't much louder. He lived in a small, tidy apartment that felt too big for just one person. His wife, Clara, had passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and the silence she left behind was a different kind, a heavy, aching one that no amount of cleaning could scrub away. His son, Michael, was a good kid, but he was busy trying to make it in a city 1,000 miles away, trying to start his own business, drowning in debt and stress. Their weekly phone calls were often cut short. "I'm swamped, Dad. I'll call you next week, promise." Arthur understood, but the loneliness was a constant companion. His only real friend had been old Mr. Albright, the history teacher. They were two quiet men who found comfort in not having to fill the silence with chatter. They'd share a pot of tea in the staff room, sometimes not saying a word for 20 minutes. When Mr. Albright retired and passed away a year later, a little more of the light in Arthur's world went out. So he was completely stunned when a lawyer, a man in a suit that cost more than Arthur's monthly rent, tracked him down at the school. "Mr. Pembleton, I represent the estate of Robert Albright. He left you something." The lawyer handed him a simple cardboard box. "Just some personal effects, books, papers. Nothing of monetary value, I'm afraid." The man said it with a hint of pity, as if handing Arthur a box of garbage. That night, in his silent apartment, Arthur opened the box. It felt like visiting a ghost. There was a worn copy of Marcus Aurelius, a book on Roman history, and at the bottom, a thick, green ledger. It was old, the cloth cover soft and faded. He opened it, expecting boring old financial records. What he found instead took his breath away. It wasn't numbers, it was people. Page after page of Mr. Albright's beautiful, looping handwriting. It was a list of students, but not their grades, it was their souls. Anya Sharma, class of '94, the orator. So quiet, but her mind is a fortress. She will find her voice, and it will shake the world. David Chen, class of '87, the builder. His hands are meant for more than writing essays. He sees the skeleton of a city in his mind. Arthur's eyes welled up. For 30 years he'd felt invisible, but Mr. Albright, he had seen people. He had looked past the fear and the awkwardness, and seen the brilliant, burning potential inside. This book was a monument to the people everyone else overlooked. People like Arthur. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, and the lawyer was right. It was worthless and priceless. He was about to close it, his heart full of a strange, sad warmth, when a single, brittle piece of paper fluttered out from the back. It was a page from an old desk calendar from 1987. On it, in the same ink, was a sentence that felt like a punch to the gut. "I saw what he did. I was a coward. I should have spoken. The debt is mine to carry. -RA." The air in the apartment grew cold. The beautiful, hopeful book suddenly had a dark crack running through it. What debt? Arthur thought, his mind racing. What did he see? His hands trembled as he flipped through the ledger again, his eyes now searching for a different kind of clue. And then, tucked deep into the binding near the middle, he found it. A photograph. 2 young men, barely out of their teens, stood laughing in front of Oakwood School. One was a young, vibrant Mr. Albright, his face full of light. The other was a handsome, dark-haired man, with a sharp, confident smile that seemed to say he already owned the world. Arthur turned the photo over. On the back, written in a shaky hand, were 2 words, "Him and me," and below that, a name that made Arthur's blood run cold. Alistair Finch. Alistair Finch. The billionaire. The philanthropist. The man on the news. In the magazines. His name on half the buildings in the city. Arthur stared at the 2 smiling faces. The gentle, quiet teacher, and the ruthless, powerful tycoon. What was the connection? What was the debt? A financial debt? Or something darker? He looked around his quiet, lonely apartment. He thought of his son, Michael, struggling to keep his business afloat. He thought of the crushing weight of his own powerlessness to help. And in that moment, the ledger in his hands transformed. It was no longer just a beautiful, sentimental relic. It was a key to a 35-year-old secret. A secret that involved one of the most powerful men in the country. And Arthur, the invisible janitor, was the only one who held it. A simple man, a heavy secret, and a name that means power and money. What is the debt? What did Albright see? Arthur's quiet life is about to be torn apart. The name Alistair Finch became a ghost in Arthur's mind, haunting his every move. For a week, he was a terrible janitor. He'd forget to refill the soap dispensers. His mopping was sloppy. The floors lost their shine. He was too busy watching the hallways, half expecting Finch himself to walk around the corner. The ledger was a stone in his locker. He'd open it during his breaks, not reading the hopeful entries, but searching for more clues. He found nothing. The photo and the note were the only pieces of the puzzle. He felt stuck. What could he do? Walk up to Alistair Finch's skyscraper and demand to know what happened in 1987. He'd be thrown out by security before he finished his sentence. The powerlessness he felt about his own life was now magnified by this enormous secret. He was a janitor, for heaven's sake. A widower living paycheck to paycheck. Men like him didn't confront men like Alistair Finch. His son Michael called. He sounded more stressed than ever. The bank might not extend the loan, Dad. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to let my employees go. Arthur listened, his heart breaking. I'm sorry, son. I wish I could help. The words felt so empty. He had nothing to give but his worry. It was that feeling of helplessness that pushed him. He was helpless to fix his son's life, but maybe, just maybe, he could solve Mr. Albright's mystery. It felt like the one thing he could actually do. His break came in Mr. Albright's old classroom. The new young teacher had a shiny new laptop, but shoved in a corner was Mr. Albright's ancient beige computer. A dinosaur. The IT guys had supposedly wiped it, but Arthur knew how things got overlooked. How people became invisible. That night, his heart hammering against his ribs, he plugged in the old machine. It groaned to life, the fan whirring like a tired old man. He clicked through the directories. Most were empty, but then he saw it. A single folder, hidden away. It was named RAF. Robert Albright Finch. His mouth went dry. It was password protected. He tried everything. Albright, history. Oakwood, nothing. He felt the familiar creep of failure. He was just a janitor. What did he know about computers? He was about to give up when he looked at the ledger, still open on the desk. He saw the entry for Anya Sharma. She will learn to use her voice. Use her voice. He typed voice. Nothing. He was so frustrated he almost slammed the keyboard. He looked at the desperate calendar note. The debt is mine to carry. It was a phrase that had been echoing in his head for days. On a final, wild guess, he typed the word DEBT. The folder unlocked. He almost fell out of the chair. Inside was one file. An audio file, labeled Truth.1987. Hands shaking. Arthur found a pair of dusty headphones and pressed play. The voice that filled his ears was young, trembling, and full of a pain Arthur knew all too well. It was Mr. Albright. I have to say this to someone, or something. We were at a party, me and Alistair. We were drinking. We were stupid. He dared me to drive his father's car. I was showing off. I lost control on Elm Street. We hit a parked truck. Hard. The whole front of the car was smashed. We panicked. We ran. Alistair. He was so calm. He said his family would handle it. He said they'd pay for the damages, that no one needed to know. He made me swear to never, ever, tell. He said if I did, he'd make sure I never taught again. That he'd ruin me. So I kept quiet. I found out later. The truck belonged to a young couple. They had a flower shop. Green leaf blooms. The insurance didn't cover it. They had to pay for everything themselves. They lost the shop a year later. They lost everything because of me. Because of my cowardice. Alistair's family never paid a dime. He lied. And I let him. This guilt. It's a debt I can never repay. The recording ended. Arthur sat in the dark, the silence of the classroom screaming in his ears. He wasn't holding a secret anymore. He was holding a life. A story of a reckless night, a lie and a dream. A flower shop called Greenleaf Blooms that was crushed because two scared young men ran away. This wasn't about a financial transaction in a ledger. This was about a moral debt, a human debt. Alistair Finch, the great philanthropist, had built his name on the ruins of someone else's dream. Arthur thought of Michael, fighting for his own small business. The anger that rose in him was hot and pure. He wasn't powerless anymore. He had the truth. Now he had to find out what happened to the people from Greenleaf Blooms. He had to try, for Mr. Albright and for everyone like his son, who just needed a fighting chance. Arthur has the truth, a truth that could destroy a legacy. But what can one man do against an empire? The stunning, emotional conclusion is next. The truth was a fire in Arthur's belly. He couldn't sleep. He'd lie in bed, listening to the silence, and Mr. Albright's tormented voice would play in his head. They lost everything because of me. He thought of Michael, and the fear in his voice. He couldn't help his own son, but maybe he could help set right this old, festering wrong. He became a man possessed. On his days off, he went to the public library, squinting at microfiche machines, his back aching. He searched for any mention of greenleaf blooms or an incident on Elm Street in 1987. It felt hopeless. He was just a janitor playing detective. But then, he found it. A tiny 2-paragraph article in a local paper he'd never heard of. Vandalism damages local florist's truck. Owners Maria and Ben Green, of Greenleaf Blooms, are facing repairs the police say were caused by, quote, an act of malicious vandalism. No suspects have been identified. Maria and Ben Green. They had names. It took him 3 more days and a dozen awkward phone calls, but he finally found a number for a Maria Green. She lived in a town 2 hours away. His hand was sweating as he dialed. A woman answered, her voice sounding tired but kind. Hello? Hi, is this Maria Green? Ma'am, my name is Arthur Pembleton. I think I know what happened to your truck in 1987. The silence on the other end was so long, he thought the line had gone dead. That was a lifetime ago, she finally said, her voice thin and fragile. That truck, it was the reason we lost our shop. We never recovered from that. Arthur's heart shattered. I know, he whispered, his own voice thick with emotion. And the man who did it. I think he's ready to make it right. He didn't know if it was true, but he had to give her that hope. Now came the hardest part. He had to confront the giant. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't a journalist. He was a janitor. So he used the only tool he had, the truth. He made copies of the audio file, the photograph, and the ledger page, with the calendar note. He put them in a plain manila envelope. He didn't write a threat. He wrote a plea, from one human being to another. His note was simple, typed on the school's computer. Mr. Finch, Robert Albright was my friend. I have his recording. Maria and Ben Green lost their dream because of a lie you told. A man's legacy isn't in the buildings with his name on them. It's in the wrongs he rights. You have 1 week to contact Maria Green and settle this debt. The full, real value of what you took from them. If you do, this secret dies with me. If you don't, it won't. I just want to see a wrong made right. A friend. He mailed it to Finch's corporate headquarters. The wait was agony. He was sure he'd be arrested. Or worse, ignored. He felt sick with fear. On the 5th day, his phone rang. A blocked number. Arthur Pembleton? A smooth, serious voice said. This is Jonathan Briggs, Mr. Finch's lawyer. We received your package. Mr. Finch would like to meet. To settle this matter. Arthur's knees buckled. He had to lean against the wall. The meeting was in a quiet, elegant law office. Alistair Finch looked old. The arrogant smile from the photograph was gone, replaced by a pale, weary mask. He didn't look at Arthur, just nodded. He didn't deny a thing. In the presence of the raw, decades-old truth, all his power seemed to evaporate. With Arthur sitting silently as a witness, Finch's lawyer presented Maria and Ben Green with a document and a cashier's check. The number on it was more money than Arthur had ever seen in his life. It was a life-changing sum, an apology written in zeros. Maria Green looked from the check to Arthur, her eyes flooding with tears. She walked over and took his hands in hers. They were rough, working hands, just like his. All these years, she whispered, we thought the world was just unfair. Thank you for giving us our story back. Driving home, Arthur didn't feel triumphant. He felt clean, like he had finally scrubbed away a stain that had been festering for 35 years. A week later, Michael called. Dad, you are not going to believe this. The bank approved the loan. A complete turnaround. I can keep the business going. Arthur smiled, a real, deep smile for the first time in years. That's wonderful, son. That's just wonderful. He never told Michael what he did. He didn't need to. That night, he took out the green ledger. He turned to a fresh page at the very back. He picked up a pen, and in his own, careful handwriting, he wrote his own entry. Arthur Pembleton, present day, the key, thought his life was small, carried a weight of silence, found the courage to unlock the truth and restore a stolen dream. His success is not in his wallet, but in his heart. He closed the book. The message was clear. The most powerful key in the world isn't one that opens a door of a mansion. It's the one that opens the door to a second chance. And that, my friends, is a key that any of us can hold, no matter who we are.